So, what are the benefits to having enchanted gear in Minecraft? How about this? 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 Or even this? Today, I'm here to talk about how to start using Minecraft's enchanting system and what kind of bonuses you can get by doing so. Minecraft is a game with nearly unlimited possibility. It's about as open world as you can get. Explore, fight, gather, create. You can do whatever you choose to set your mind to. But the same things that make Minecraft great may also make it overwhelming, especially for newer players. And that's why this video exists. I can't tell you how to play, but I can help you discover what you can do to get you started, and for some more experienced players, maybe help you brush up on the basics. Welcome to Minecraft CavesNotes. Let's go ahead and mine right into today's topic. Enchanting can be done with all weapons and armor, as well as most tools. The only real barrier to getting started is resources. The primary method of enchanting is with an enchanting table, which is not found naturally anywhere in the vanilla game and must be crafted. Diamonds, obsidian, and a book make up the recipe for the table, so getting one early is not easy. And even once you have an enchanting table, you'll want to create bookshelves to place around it to get its full potential. Bookshelves can be crafted using 3 books and 6 wooden planks. The books themselves are made using a piece of leather and 3 pieces of paper. And you'll want 15 bookcases to maximize the enchantments you can get. This boils down to a significant entry cost or time commitment to begin enchanting, but here are some suggestions that might help speed things up. Diamonds and obsidian can both be found in village weaponsmith chests, and ruined nether portals and shipwrecks are another way to find obsidian and diamonds, respectively. For the bookcases, if you've advanced to the point of having found a stronghold or a woodland mansion, you could loot all you need from these locations. If not, trading with a librarian villager may allow you to collect the bookcases you need without having to double down on breeding cows or growing sugarcane. Or if you're the adventuring type, head out on a journey and travel light, and you may be able to get all the leather and sugarcane you need just by exploring a swath of your surroundings. You can begin enchanting without any bookcases. You'll just be limited to the lowest level enchantments. Just place down your enchanting table and click Use, and you will see a list of 3 options to try. To enchant an item, you'll need to sacrifice some XP levels and provide a magical catalyst in the form of lapis. Lapis is another item you can find in shipwrecks, but check out Chapter 6 to learn how and where to mine for it. Hover over the available enchantment options to see a preview. The enchantment shown will be added to the item, but more may also be included. You just won't know until you try it. Each of the 3 slots will require that you sacrifice 1, 2, or 3 XP levels and 1, 2, or 3 pieces of lapis in order to enchant your equipment, but it will also show the level of the enchantment itself. In order for an enchantment to be available, your XP level must be at least as high as the enchantment level, even though you won't spend these levels to enchant. The highest enchantment level possible is level 30. To make these enchantments available, you'll need to place down at least 15 bookcases within the area shown. Bookcases will only count if they are 2 blocks away from the enchanting table in any direction horizontally, at the level of the table or one above. This includes diagonals, but it must be without any obstructions. One very common mistake is putting torches on the bookshelves. The torch will block the effect of the books from the table. In addition to the enchanting table, there are 2 other blocks you should have nearby for convenience. The first is an anvil. Anvils are expensive to craft, requiring 4 iron ingots and 3 full iron blocks, and they will break after a number of uses. But they allow for the targeted adding or combining of enchantments instead of the randomness of the enchanting table. So why not just use the anvil? The primary reason is that combining enchantments or items using the anvil takes much more XP levels, and may even reach a cap where you are locked out from improving an item any further. So the best course of action is to start with the enchanting table, and then add or combine any desired enchantments afterward using the anvil. The other block I'd recommend having is a grindstone. Unlike the enchanting table and the anvil, grindstones can be found naturally in villages, and you can also craft them using 2 wood planks, 2 sticks, and a stone slab. Grindstones do not add enchantments, but can be used to remove them from items, and in the process will return a small amount of XP back to you. This is helpful for when you enchant an item and are unhappy with the end result, or to get a blank slate for a piece of equipment after finding it or trading for it when it already has low-level enchantments applied. So now that you've got an idea of how to enchant, let's talk about what kind of enchantments you'll likely want to use. First and foremost, we need to talk about durability enchantments. These two enchantments can be put on any enchantable equipment, that is tools, armor, and weapons, and are the only enchantments that can be put on shields and elytra. And for the most part, these will always be worth it. There's one small exception we'll talk about a little bit later on. Unbreaking has 3 tiers, and effectively increases the durability of your item. Technically, the way this works is that every time the item would lose durability points, there's a chance that it won't. And over time, this simply averages out to an overall gain in the life of the gear. Mending is a very special enchantment that can restore durability points to an item by converting XP orbs to durability instead of adding them to your XP bar. Mending is considered a treasure enchantment, which means it will never be applied by an enchanting table and instead must be manually added using mending books. These books can be obtained in certain loot chests, by trading with librarian villagers, or as a rare fishing reward. Next up, we'll talk about offensive combat enchantments. For weapons, most enchantments are unique to the specific type of weapon, although there are a few that overlap. The sword has a large list of available enchantments that vary in effectiveness. One of the most desired enchantments on a sword is looting, which has 3 tiers and increases the chance of getting drops from killing mobs, as well as increasing the chance of the mob's rare loot dropping when applicable. By contrast, knockback is one of the enchantments often skipped over by players. As its name suggests, it increases the amount mobs get pushed back when you hit them with a sword. In general, when in melee combat, knocking back enemies is only worthwhile when you can't kill them quickly, or if they are specifically dangerous up close, like creepers. This enchantment has 2 tiers, and although it's not bad by any means, more often than not there are other enchantments that you'll rather use instead. One example is Fire Aspect, which also has 2 tiers, and sets mobs on fire when they're hit. This will do additional damage to any enemies that aren't immune to fire. And if the mob drops loot that is cookable, like animal meat, the loot will change to the cooked item if the mob dies while on fire. Another great enchantment that many players will opt for is Sweeping Edge, but this is only available on Java Edition. That's because Sweeping Edge applies additional damage to mobs hit with a sweep attack, whereas normally only the primary target takes significant damage. In Bedrock, all sword attacks are single target, so Sweeping Edge would have no function. Sweeping Edge has 3 tiers. Finally are the damage enchantments. These are Sharpness, Smite, and Bane of Arthropods, and each have 5 tiers. These enchantments are mutually exclusive, meaning that only one of them may be applied to the weapon. Sharpness grants a damage increase to the sword against any mob, so it tends to be the go-to for many players. Smite and Bane of Arthropods offer an even larger damage increase, but only to a certain selection of mobs. Between these two, there's a clear winner. Bane of Arthropods is effective against 4 mobs: spiders, cave spiders, silverfish, and endermites. Since cave spiders only spawn in abandoned mineshafts, silverfish only show up in mountains and strongholds, and endermites only rarely spawn when an ender pearl is used, unless you're specifically looking to farm spiders, this enchantment is unlikely to be useful to you. Smite, on the other hand, affects all mobs tagged as undead, which includes some very common enemies like zombies and skeletons, the often complained about phantoms, and even the Wither, one of the toughest mobs in the game. In fact, I highly recommend bringing Smite to a Wither fight. The axe functions as both a weapon and a tool. As a weapon, the axe can take any of the 3 damage enchantments that the sword can, but because of combat differences between Java and Bedrock Edition, these may not be as desirable on Bedrock. In the Enchanting Table itself, the axe is classified as a tool. Therefore, any combat enchantments will need to be added using an anvil in the appropriate books. We'll talk about tool enchantments in a moment. The Mace can utilize Smite and Bane of Arthropods, like the sword can, but also has 3 unique enchantments. Density has 5 tiers, and is essentially the Mace's version of Sharpness, which means it won't stack with the first 2. It increases damage to any mob, but only when using the smash attack. Breach nullifies an enemy's armor bonus, but you're likely to find Density offers more consistent benefit than Breach does, and Breach is also incompatible with the other 3 damage enchantments. Windburst creates a powerful gust when you land a smash hit on an enemy, knocking back all mobs in the area and shooting the player back up into the air for another go. Windburst can only be found in trial chambers, the same place you can get the ingredients to make the mace. This enchantment has 3 tiers and allows for chaining attacks for massive damage. But be warned, it takes a high degree of practice and patience to learn to pull off chain attacks without splatting into the ground. And if you'd like, you can also add Fire Aspect to deal additional fire damage to mobs. The bow gets entirely unique enchantments, with Power functioning as the primary damage enchantment, up to 5 tiers. To add injury to insult, you can include Flame as a ranged version of Fire Aspect. Like the sword's knockback, Punch 1 and 2 increase knockback to enemies, but on a ranged weapon, and one with less total options, this can actually be a worthwhile pick. Finally, we have Infinity, which allows for endless ammunition as long as you have a single arrow in your inventory. The catch is that Infinity is the one enchantment that is not compatible with Mending, so you'll need to decide which works better for you. This will primarily depend on playstyle, such as how often you like to use the bow, as well as your access to resources. For example, if you have built a skeleton farm, or you have a Fletcher villager who sells arrows, Mending may be a better choice than Infinity. But for an extended battle like the Bedrock Wither fight, an Unbreaking 3 Infinity bow may allow you to avoid running out of arrows without clogging your inventory. The crossbow has a slower charge than the bow, but this can be fixed using Quick Charge at Tier 3. Piercing will allow you to hit multiple enemies in a line up to 5 at once with the Tier 4 version. And Multi-Shot will spray 3 arrows for the cost of 1, allowing you to splash additional enemies with damage. Quick Charge is pure benefit, while you'll need to weigh the other two since they can't be used together. I've seen some arguments suggesting Piercing is likely to be more useful than Multi-Shot, and overall I'd tend to agree, but mostly it will come down to your own playstyle. The Trident also gets a handful of unique enchantments. Riptide has 3 tiers and will change your throw into self-propulsion whenever you are touching water or rain. This can allow you to travel quickly through the water or fly through rainy skies, and can be super useful when combined with an Elytra for travel. But it's very situational, and cannot be used with either of the next 2 enchantments. Loyalty also has 3 tiers, and returns the Trident to your hands after a throw, making it an absolute game changer, and a must if you're not using Riptide. And Channeling will summon a bolt of lightning to strike a target enemy, if you're using it outside during a thunderstorm. This one is very situational, but gets bonus points for the awesome factor, and can be used with loyalty, so if you have the opportunity to play around with it, you'll probably enjoy it. The Trident's damage increasing enchantment is Impaling, coming in with 5 tiers, and it actually works differently between Java and Bedrock. On Java, Impaling grants bonus damage against all aquatic mobs, such as drowned, guardians, and sea creatures. But on Bedrock, the damage bonus applies to any mob touching water, or even rain, so its potential is massively increased, since all the previously mentioned mobs will usually be in water anyway, and others can be affected as well. There's no real downside to Impaling for either edition, and if you're on Bedrock, this turns the Trident into a beast of a weapon. For all armor pieces, there are 5 potential enchantments to be had. Protection has 4 tiers and offers reduction to almost all forms of damage, while Fire Protection, Blast Protection, and Projectile Protection offer increased mitigation to specific damage types. In general, Protection is usually the way to go, but if you're struggling with certain enemies or situations, you may want to consider swapping or mixing in some other types, such as Fire Protection if the Nether is giving you headaches, or Blast Protection if creepers tend to sneak up on you a lot. Keep in mind that all 4 protection types are mutually exclusive, but you also have 4 pieces of armor to work with, so you could play around with mixing and matching. Lastly, Thorns has 3 tiers and causes damage to mobs that attack you. This even works with ranged attacks, such as skeleton arrows. While this doesn't prevent any damage, it kind of embodies the mantra that the best defense is a good offense, allowing you to take down enemies more quickly and maybe saving your skin in a sketchy situation. Aside from the chestplate, each of the other armor pieces also have additional enchantments available. The helmet can be enchanted with 2 underwater bonuses: Respiration up to Tier 3, and Aqua Affinity. Respiration grants bonus breathing time underwater, making diving for shipwrecks and ruined portals much safer. Aqua Affinity removes the underwater mining penalty, allowing you to gather resources underwater more easily. For clarification, usually when you attempt to mine or dig underwater, your mining speed drops significantly. With Aqua Affinity, that's no longer the case. If you spend any time around the water and have the ability to grab these enchantments, they'll definitely both be worth it. Leggings only have 1 additional enchantment, and it's not an easy one to get. Swift Sneak is only available by looting ancient cities. For the average player, it's not much of a necessity. But for big building projects in the endgame, or just for looting even more ancient cities, it's a fantastic enchantment. Swift Sneak has 3 tiers and increases the speed at which you sneak, so you can move nearly at normal speed while not falling off of your high tower, or you can quietly escape the warden with a lot less anxiety. Arguably the most important enchantment for boots is Feather Falling, with 4 tiers. Feather Falling reduces fall damage, and it does stack with protection, so it's a definite win all around. Soul Speed can only be obtained in the Nether, from offering gold to piglins or in Bastion remnant chests. Soul Speed has 3 tiers, and turns the slowing effect of Soul Sand into a speed boost. The speed effect does consume durability, so save this one for after you have mending and unbreaking on those boots. The remaining 2 enchantments are mutually exclusive with each other, so you'll only get to use one. Depth Strider has 3 tiers, and is excellent to pair with the helmet enchantments, as it increases your movement speed underwater. If you plan to do any underwater exploration, I highly recommend it. Frostwalker is another treasure enchantment, meaning it won't be easy to find and must be manually added to boots unless you've found an enchanted pair as loot. It has 2 tiers and 2 very specific functions. First, Frostwalker will turn the top layer of water near your feet to ice. You must be standing on a block already for it to work, but with Frostwalker boots equipped, you can run across oceans if you wish. The second bonus to Frostwalker boots is that they will nullify damage from magma blocks. With these boots on, you can walk across magma normally, so this might be a worthwhile enchantment to pair with fire protection armor if you're having difficulty in the Nether. Finally, we have tool-specific enchantments, and there are only a few. The following 3 enchantments can be applied to axes, pickaxes, shovels, and hoes. Efficiency is the no-nonsense king of tool enchantments. With 5 tiers, it speeds up mining speed for whatever type of block the tool is used for. The only note of caution here is that diamond tools with efficiency 5 may instantly mine some blocks, which is great, unless it's accidental, and especially if you're standing on them. Fortune is basically looting for tools. Generally speaking, if a block is meant to drop items instead of the block itself when it's broken, then Fortune gives a chance to receive extra drops. It maxes at Tier 3, and it's incompatible with Silk Touch, which instead allows you to pick up blocks in their raw forms, often allowing you to collect blocks that would otherwise be unobtainable or incredibly rare to find, like grass blocks or coral. Both Fortune and Silk Touch have their uses, and it's often good practice to have a pickaxe with each, but the use cases for the other tools are less common and will depend on how you play. The fishing rod does not receive normal tool enchantments, but instead gets 2 of its own, which can be used together if desired, and both of which have 3 tiers. Lure reduces the average wait time for a bite on your line, making it unconditionally useful unless you like waiting longer. Luck of the Sea is focused on affecting the loot that is available from fishing. Normally you have a chance to catch fish, junk items, or treasure items. Luck of the Sea tips the balance away from junk in favor of treasure, which can be things like name tags, saddles, other fishing rods, and even enchanted books. It is entirely possible to start with a regular fishing rod and fish up other rods with enchantments to combine for the ultimate fishing tool. A few other secondary tools can also take mending and unbreaking, though the effectiveness of adding them is debatable. These are the brush, flint and steel, carrot or warped fungus on a stick, and shears. Shears can also have efficiency added, and on bedrock only, silk touch as well. But again, the likelihood of needing any of these to be enchanted is pretty low. In addition to all these enchantments, Minecraft also has 2 curses. While you may sometimes find equipment with these applied, and villagers may also sell cursed books, there's really no good reason to seek them out unless you're trying to troll someone, or you have a really unique and specific use case. These are the Curse of Binding and the Curse of Vanishing. Curse of Binding is only active when applied to armor, and its role is to stick that piece of armor to you like glue. Once it's moved into an equipped armor slot, you will no longer be able to remove it until it breaks or you die. This can be incredibly problematic for several reasons, which I don't think I need to list out. Curse of Vanishing, on the other hand, can affect any item that can be enchanted. As long as you don't have a Curse of Vanishing item on you when you die, it won't affect anything. But if you do have an accident, any items in your inventory that have the curse applied will disappear instead of dropping with the rest of your kit. Of course, if you've decided to play on hardcore mode, then this isn't really a concern anyway. Curses cannot be removed even with the Grindstone. A few quick final notes. When combining items or enchanted books with the Anvil, if the same enchantment exists on both items in different tiers, the higher of the 2 will apply. If they are the same tier, they will combine for a result 1 tier higher, if that enchantment exists. If you are combining items that have incompatible enchantments, the enchantment in the first slot will take precedence, as long as there are other enchantments to add or upgrade. But if, for example, you had 2 pickaxes, one with Silk Touch and the other with Fortune, and no other enchantments on them, you would not be able to combine them at all. Books may also be enchanted using an enchanting table, which can then be saved for adding to other items or combining with other books. It is possible to have up to 7 enchantments on certain gear that have enough compatible options, but due to the fact that Anvil enchanting gets more expensive for each step, this is difficult to achieve, so typically you can plan to have 4 to 5 enchantments at a time. There are a few other details of the enchanting mechanic that are interesting, but not overly useful to know at this point. For example, gold armor and weapons have a higher chance of gaining high-level enchantments, while iron and even diamond gear have lower chances. But golden gear isn't useful in most situations, so you'll likely skip it anyway. I hope you enjoyed today's CavesNotes, and I especially hope you found out something useful. And now that you've got some awesome gear available to you, I'm leaning heavily towards our next episode taking a peek into the game's second dimension, the Nether. I hope to see you there. And as always, thank you for watching.